Ospreys give tabletoppers Leinster a scare. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Ospreys produced a very good performance in this one, making life very uncomfortable for Leinster for much of the game and just kind of sticking in there and almost pulling it off at the end. But it was Leinster who started the better of the two teams. They win an early scrum penalty, and that was a kind of a feature of the game. Leinster definitely on top in the scrums. They kicked that penalty to corner, go around the corner from the line out. They're penny away at the line, but Morgan Morris gets over the ball to win a penalty for Ospreys. Really good defence there from Ospreys, and that's another thing that featured all the way through. Morgan Morris and Deves, just two brilliant performances from them. Leinster then, they're probing for gaps. They're going from width to width, but again, Morgan Morris gets over the ball to win a penalty. Culhane then gets pinged for neck roll and allows Ospreys to kick to the corner. Leinster though compete at the line out, and Deegan taps it back on his own side to allow McCarthy to kick it clear. And Ospreys, they got a few chances in the game, and like that, not always making the most of them. And if they had taken one extra chance, who knows what could have happened in this game. But Frawley then, one of 5 players released from the Ireland squad, kicks out in the full, and Ospreys have a chance to attack from the edge of the 22. And I don't think, from Frawley's point of view, wasn't the performance he was looking for, having not played so far in the Six Nations. Leinster's defence, though, managed to drive Ospreys back before Culhane gets over to win a penalty. Leinster then, they come forward. Osborne slips a tackle on the edge of 22. And then a wide pass to Jimmy O'Brien. He passes back inside, and then McGrath is over for the try. Conversions missed as 5 points to 0. Osborne then kicks a beauty of a 50-22 to give Leinster another attacking opportunity. And at this stage, it kind of felt a little bit ominous, because we've seen before Leinster, they can score tries in 2s and 3s. But it's, I think it's an indication of how much they were feeling it in terms of the Ospreys' performance, because they attack from the line out. Morgan Morris cut offside. Immediately they decide they're going to kick for the post. Frawley pops that over from right in front for 8 points to 0. Yeah, and I think the fact that Leinster were taking points early in the game shows you, how much effect Ospreys' performance were actually having on them. We then have a period with knock-ons from both sides, but Leinster dominant in the scrum. They're winning penalties, but line-out not going all that well, so it's kind of evening itself out, and they're not able to take advantage of those penalties. Leinster then pinged for not rolling away, and Ospreys kick to the corner, looking for a try just before half-time. Go to the maul. It's got momentum. It splits, but Harry Deves manages to get over with Phillips and Tipperick to help. Owen Williams converts for 8 points to 7. We then have a crock roll at the restart that allows Leinster to kick to the corner. They try a peel on the blind side, but they're stopped. They then recycle it, move it infield, and Tector gets over to score. Frawley converts for 15 points to 7. We still then have time for Leinster to then infringe at the restart, allowing Ospreys to kick to the corner. They go to the maul again, but this time Leinster halt it, make it unplayable, 15-7 half time. So the match really brightening up in the last few minutes before the break. Into the second half then, Ospreys start fairly brightly. They're putting pressure on Leinster, and they force Osborne to knock on the edge of his 22. Ospreys then win free at the scrum, and then Leinster get pinged for not rolling away after they run it. They kick that to the corner, go to the maul, and Leinster collapse. So back to the corner again from the next penalty. This time they drive it over, and Lewis is to score. Conversion missed, 15 points to 12. Leinster then coming forward again, Snyman is on from the bench. Ospreys under immense pressure from a scrum in their own 22. They do well though with the clearance and get another penalty for not rolling away. Leinster very sloppy in that area tonight. They got pinged for that on several occasions. Ospreys then working into 22 and they're making ground, actually starting to break tackles as well, which they hadn't been doing up to this point, but then the move does break down. Morgan Morris then in at the side, and it allows Leinster to have a decent position in the Ospreys half. Leinster then strike. They decided going to attack off a line out, but they go over the top, and the first player there is an Ospreys player, but Leinster then managed to turn them over. And they go through the phases, working within a couple of meters of the line. Snyman then offloads to Slimani, who forces his way over to score. Byrne adds the extras for 22 points to 12. And at that stage, it felt, Leinster settled things a little bit and they should be able to carry this home. But, we didn't see the kind of ruthless streak that we normally see from them, in terms of closing the game out. Harry Deves then puts in a lovely kick to the Leinster 22. They said it was a 50-22, but I thought actually Leinster carried it out, and I'm not sure whether it would have been given as a 50-22 anyway. But either way, the line out is to Ospreys, and the fact that they make a mistake as they move off the top of the line out really didn't do justice to the quality of that kick from Devers. For a forward to put in a kick like that really was crazy. Ospreys then go to the corner from another penalty to go to the maul. Snyman gets pinged for swimming, so back to the corner again. Leinster's maul defence decent this time, so Ospreys decide to move it. Spencer then, I think he came off the bench, right? A couple of good carries from him, getting the momentum. They're so close to the line. Then Cam Jones dives over to score next to the post. Walsh converts, and it's 22 points to 15 with 5 minutes to go. Ospreys then hold Leinster with good defence, win a penalty for offside, and you're feeling like upset really is on here because they are getting opportunities. They come forward, but Maguire counter rucks, and Ospreys concede a penalty. And I think Leinster should see it out from here, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to run down the clock, keep it simple, but Tipperick gets over the ball, and they've got one last chance from a penalty. Hopkins, goes for bust, going for distance, but doesn't make touch. Leinster then get off the field, 22 points in 19 full time. So kind of a pulsating game. Not a lot in terms of quality, honestly, from either team. There were patches here and there, but it was still a very intriguing game to watch, especially given how well Ospreys did in terms of coming back and almost snatching it at the end there. We'll have a look at the stats now, and then we'll briefly talk about each teams. So try scored 3 each. So Ospreys, if they had scored a try to win it, would have actually got a bonus point win as well. Possession then 47% to 53 in favour of Leinster. But in the first half, Leinster were up at, in the mid 60s for both possession and territory. So Ospreys really did come back in that second half. Clean breaks though, only 1 for Ospreys and 7 for Leinster. And then defenders beaten 13 for Ospreys and 12 for Leinster. So Ospreys only 1 clean break from 13 defenders beaten. It's not a good return from them. And that was part of their game that was lacking here, was a real cutting edge in attack. But Leinster, more than 50%, conversion rate from defenders beaten to line breaks. Offloads then, 5 for Ospreys, 8 for Leinster. Haven't seen the individual stats yet, but Snyman must have got at least half of them. The guy was doing it. He was only on at the end, but yeah, plenty of offloads from him. onto defence then, territory, 46% for Ospreys, 54% for Leinster. Again, Ospreys really turned things around in that second half to get a bit closer. Number of tackles, 105 for Ospreys, 122 for Leinster. Missed tackles, 12-13. So tackle success, 81 for Ospreys. They'd want to be a bit higher than that, kind of 85-87. We always talk about it as being the pass mark. Leinster at 84. We normally see Leinster down kind of where Ospreys are at 81 because they rely more on their scramble because, they're so aggressive getting off the line. Turnovers 1 then, 6 for Ospreys, 7 for Leinster. Both teams very competitive at the breakdown, and causing a lot of turnovers because of that. Kicks retained then, 5 for Ospreys, 4 for Leinster. The kicking game, never, it did have an effect on the game, just in terms of obviously moving the point at which the game was being played, but we didn't really have any retained kicks, leading to a break or, a possible try or anything like that. It was more about territory really with those. Penalties conceded then, 11 for Ospreys, 14 for Leinster. I will say as a Leinster fan, I was surprised that Leinster didn't get a warning for the amount of penalties they were giving away. But I think probably what saved them there was the fact that, Ospreys scored those couple of maul tries. I think if they'd infringed, on either of the moves, for those two, maul tries from Ospreys, I think that, they probably would have, gotten a yellow card, at that stage and somebody gone to the bin. So I think that's probably what was in the referee's mind at that stage. But I think they probably should have got a warning at some point. Then successful carries. Daniel Kasende with 4 for Ospreys. Kind of like a lot of kind of unheralded work from him, really. Not a lot of opportunity really out wide, as I said, for making proper breaks or whatever. But the guy was a willing carrier for them. And he has been a really good recruit for them as well, I think. Then James Culhane with 6 carries for Leinster. Clean breaks, Keelan Giles at 1. Again, kind of, ploughing a lone furrow really, out wide for him. Didn't come in looking for work as much as Kasende did, I'd say. And then for Leinster then, 2 clean breaks from Tommy O'Brien. Defenders Breton then, Harry Deves with 5. He had a fantastic game for Ospreys. For me, he was the best player on the pitch, for either side. Then Alex Soroka with 2 for Leinster. I talked about in the preview about, hoping to see him, doing well, and he did do well coming off the bench. Meters made then, Owen Williams with 40 and Jamie Osborne with 84. Jamie Osborne probably the standout in terms of the players released from the Ireland squad. Offloads then, Justin Tipperick with 1 and Ordy Snamu with only 2. That's surprising, honestly. I was definitely expecting that number to be 4 or 5. Number of tackles then, Harry Deves with 17, Scott Penny with 18. Such a quality player in that Leinster back row, to be so far down the pecking order there himself. And Todd Deegan did pretty well as well in the back row. Turnovers 1 then, Morgan Morris with 3 and Tommy O'Brien with 2 for Leinster. So Morris and Deves really are the 2 kind of standouts for me from the Ospreys point of view. And like on Leinster side, I thought Slimani did well for them. I thought as well that Boyle, the tight head, or sorry, not the loose head, tight head, the loose head, who was released from the Ireland squad as well. He's another one that had a decent game. Gus McCarthy, not as explosive as we normally saw him, but still, fairly decent for them. On to then, let's talk about the 2 teams. So we start with the home team, Ospreys. They did so well to come back at Leinster. Thought their line-out went well. The maul was a real weapon for them. Scrum, though, really struggled, and that was probably, something that denied them a lot of decent opportunities, because when Leinster were knocking on, you know, a lot of the time then Ospreys were conceding penalties from the scrum. Defensively though, solid, very competitive at the breakdown. You saw that with like both Morgan Morris and Deeves getting over the ball, either turning it over or winning penalties for the side. And it felt like, yeah, if they offered a little bit more in attack, they might have actually won this one. And that was the one disappointing bit from them, really, other than the scrum, was that, lack of cutting edge, really, in attack. Leinster then looked to be in control of the game going into the final 15 minutes, but they allowed Ospreys to come back into it and almost pay the price, So we don't expect that from a Leinster team. It doesn't matter like how many changes they made, we still expect them to be able to close out games and normally to finish the game kind of pulling away. But it didn't happen for them today, and that's full credit to Ospreys on that as well. Scrum was dominant, had issues in the line out, definitely. Struggled also to cope with that Ospreys maul. A couple of times they did halt it, but when Ospreys got over for their tries, they were really going forward in the maul. Kicking game then was mixed. A couple of kicks out on the full, a couple of kind of just wayward kicks with no real intent behind, what they're doing. They're just kicking it because there were no real options on in attack. Took their chances, but honestly didn't create much more than they actually scored. Normally we see them kind of being able to create more than we saw tonight. Again, that's credit to Ospreys as well for shutting them down when it did. 100% record intact, but this game was mighty close. And something as well to bear in mind, is that if previous seasons are any kind of guide, we're probably going to see a lot of these guys heading down to South Africa in round 13 and 14, with, the guys who are away with Ireland at the moment, and probably some of the guys who came back in from the Ireland squad for tonight as well, staying back in Dublin. At least that's been the trend. Whether they decide, that they're actually going to send a stronger squad this year, we'll have to see on that. I hope they do, but I suspect that it probably will be a lot of the players that we saw tonight, as I said. So that's the end of this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments.